Aren't you cold? Rebecca, my son's wife, asked with a gentle voice.
Now that you mention it, I do feel a bit chilly. Maybe it's the fever.
I had been suffering from a high fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit since the morning. Then you might want to put on something warmer. I have some old winter clothes I don't need anymore in the closet. Wear those, sweat a lot, and get your fever down, okay? Saying that, Rebecca went to get an old jacket of hers and came back to put it on me.
Thank you. Rebecca.
No need. Linda, you're Timothy's important mother, you and also an important mother to me. And if you have something to cool my head, please. You must be cold? So, I'll turn on the heating for you. With those words, Rebecca closed the door of the room and went somewhere.
Did Rebecca say something strange at the end, or was it my misunderstanding?
Feeling a bit odd, it took some time for me to think clearly through my dazed consciousness.
Turn on the heating, surely not.
Before I knew it, the room had become as hot as if I were in a sauna. I was desperately looking for the air conditioner remote.
Why can't I find the remote anywhere?
Trying to leave the room in a hurry, the door wouldn't open. No matter how many times I threw my weakened body against the door, it wouldn't budge.
Rebecca, open this door. This prank has gone too far. This is way over the line. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hey, are you listening?
Eventually, my consciousness began to fade, and I collapsed to the floor. As my consciousness faded, my hand unconsciously grabbed my mobile phone.
Anyone, please, help!
My name is Linda, 43 years old. I married earlier than most of my friends and had my eldest son, Timothy, at the age of 20. However, my husband died in an unexpected accident. Raising a child as a single mother was not easy, and I was willing to take any job I could, eventually finding employment at a certain company. Eventually, I realized that the work environment was extremely harsh, but I continued to work for over 20 years with the thought, until Timothy can stand on his own. Now, Timothy is living away from home in a condominium, enjoying his newlywed life with a woman he met at a party, named Rebecca. Feeling relieved by my son's independence and perhaps because the long-standing tension had finally snapped, I ended up breaking down physically and had no choice but to quit the company I had served for over 20 years. You've always worked hard for my sake, Mom. Maybe it's time you started living for yourself? Timothy said this, but having worked for the sake of my family for so many years, the idea of living for myself was somewhat foreign to me. After much thought, the answer I came to was, maybe I should try working a bit more? However, I was done with the harsh working conditions of the past, so I decided to opt for a part-time job that would allow me to work at my own pace and during hours I preferred. I thought it would be fine as long as I found a new goal while working part-time, without any rush. Then, until your life stabilizes, you can stay at my condo for a while. There's a spare bedroom that's vacant, intended for friends who come to stay over.
Your condo, wouldn't I be a bother?
A bother? No way. I am what I am today because of you, Mom. If I can repay you, I wouldn't consider it a bother at all. I felt resistant to moving into my newlywed son and his wife's condominium.
Wouldn't Rebecca mind?
I think it'll be fine. She's a good person, so I'm sure she'll get along with you, Mom.
Then I'll take you up on that offer. I'll find a stable job and move out as soon as I can.
No rush, Mom. Go at your own pace. It worries me more as your son if you rush and get sick again. Thus began my life living with my son and his wife. Rebecca, my son's wife, greeted me with a warm smile. I've cleaned up your room, washed the bed sheets, too. You can put your luggage in the bedroom and relax, maybe watch some TV for now.
Thank you. But being treated so kindly makes me feel even more guilty about imposing.
I'm still far from a perfect wife and have so much to learn. If it's okay with you, Linda, please teach me.
Sure. Looking forward to it, Rebecca.
Watching our exchange, Timothy smiled.
See? Just like I said, right?
I felt a surge of excitement, sensing that Rebecca and I would get along just fine. However, about a month later, as I tried to leave my bedroom, the door wouldn't open properly, as if something was blocking it. Wondering if it was a problem with the door fitting or perhaps the wood had swollen from humidity, I pushed the door open with force, only to find a mountain of laundry piled up.
What on earth is this?
I was at a loss for words at the sight of the laundry carelessly piled up in the hallway. Then, Rebecca's voice came from the direction of the living room. Linda, I've let the laundry pile up, so could you please do it? Rebecca said this while lounging on the sofa, munching on snack foods and watching TV.
If you wanted it done, you could have just asked. Why did you have to dump it in the hallway?
I thought it would be more noticeable and easier for you to see that way. I clearly felt this was a form of harassment. On another day, as Rebecca was engrossed in a video game in the living room, I kindly offered. I can teach you some of Timothy's favorite recipes. Would you like to help me cook tonight? Rebecca clicked her tongue annoyingly and said,
Don't bother me now. I'm at a good part. You made me mess up. Your mere presence is annoying.
Ever since I moved into the condominium, I had never once seen Rebecca cook anything resembling a meal. When I asked why she didn't cook, Rebecca said with a straight face, Because it's a hassle. When asked how they managed their meals until now, she said, I asked Timothy to pick up frozen food or fast food from the grocery store on his way home from work, and also snacks and drinks. I wondered if this couple always lived on such a diet. Opening the refrigerator, I found it devoid of any real food ingredients. I'm not interested in cooking. If you want to do it, then go ahead. But every time I tried to involve Rebecca in cooking.
Stop nagging. I'm letting you stay here for free, so don't complain. I thought you were going to do the housekeeping, that's why I let you stay. If you're going to keep bothering me and Timothy, why don't you just leave?
It seemed she felt I was intruding on her newlywed life with Timothy. Having been told that, I couldn't argue, as it was an undeniable fact. You're right. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I never intended to be a burden or get in your way. Please understand that. Although Rebecca spoke to me arrogantly when we were alone, as soon as Timothy returned home from work. Listen, Linda is going to teach me how to cook Timothy's favorite dishes. I'll try making them sometime, so look forward to it. She smiled at me with a forced cheerfulness, and I smiled back silently.
You two really get along well. It looks like the typical MIL and DIL conflict doesn't apply here.
Timothy laughed heartily, oblivious to the reality.
And look at the laundry and how much cleaner the room is. I did all that. Linda made it easy to understand. Wow, you are like a model housewife.
In reality, I had done everything myself, while Rebecca had merely lounged on the sofa. Despite my position as a dependent, I couldn't bring myself to reveal Rebecca's true nature to Timothy. One day, this life continued for a while. From the moment I woke up that morning, I felt a pain in my head. Normally, my body would start moving at a certain time, but on this day, it seemed like it was refusing to move. There was this peculiar sensation as if my body was softly floating in the air, and just by taking a single step out of bed, I felt incredibly exhausted. It didn't take long for me to realize this was due to a fever. When I checked with a thermometer, it read 102 degrees Fahrenheit.
I wonder if I've caught a cold.
Reflecting on the previous day, I remembered that Rebecca had asked me to go shopping at the supermarket near the station. On my way back, it suddenly started raining, and I didn't have an umbrella. I didn't think Rebecca would bring one to me if I asked, so I waited for the rain to stop. Then, I received a message from Rebecca. Come back now. Taking a taxi wasn't an option due to financial constraints, and since the condo wasn't too far from the station, I foolishly thought I could just run back. Upon arriving and asking Rebecca what was the matter, I ordered takeout, and the delivery person should be arriving soon. I really prefer not to deal with people, so Linda, could you pay for it instead? I had been made to run in the rain just for that. It was clear to me what had caused my cold. Somehow managing to get up and make my way to the living room with heavy steps, Rebecca was sprawled in her usual spot on the sofa. Linda, the laundry has piled up, so could you take care of it? I leaned against the wall. Rebecca, I'm sorry, but could you take care of your own things today? Linda, what's wrong with you? Your face is all red. It seems I've caught a cold. I'll be resting in my room for today. That's going to be a problem. An auntie just lying around sick is nothing but a nuisance to us. Even if you say that, there's nothing I can do if my body won't cooperate. Your body won't cooperate. But you walked all the way here, didn't you? That means you can move if you try a little harder. Also, I haven't had breakfast yet, so please take care of that. And like I said before, don't forget the laundry. If you could, please clean the room too. Rebecca's commands relentlessly pierced my aching head. And if Linda really can't stand anymore, you can rest in your room, but only after you've prepared my lunch, okay? Without the energy to argue and my mind barely functioning, I silently carried out Rebecca's orders. I prepared breakfast for her, made lunch in advance, started the laundry, and cleaned the floors. Could you move, please? Linda, you're in the way, and I can't see the TV at all. What do you think I am? I'm not a robot. The emotions I usually kept deep inside burst out, as if propelled by the high fever. I can see you're not a robot. After all, a cleaning robot wouldn't be in the way, wouldn't complain, and would be much more useful than you. I was about to retort, but before I could, all strength left my body, and I collapsed to the floor. Yet, Rebecca remained motionless, not moving an inch from the sofa, continuing to watch TV. When the laundry machine signaled its cycle had ended, I somehow managed to hang the laundry on the balcony, feeling like I could collapse at any moment. Rebecca, I've prepared your lunch, so I'm going to rest until the evening. Okay. Make sure you go quickly once you're done. I don't want to catch a cold from you. I had no energy left to respond to her words. As I was drifting off to sleep after crawling into bed. Linda, are you okay? Rebecca entered the bedroom. I had already made lunch for her. What more could she possibly want? Aren't you cold? For once, she seemed to be showing concern for me. Now that you mention it, I do feel a bit chilly. Maybe it's because of the fever. In my weakened state, I mistook her malicious intent for genuine kindness. Then you might want to dress more warmly. Oh, right. I have some old winter clothes I don't need anymore in the closet. Wear those, sweat a lot, and lower your fever, okay? Saying that, Rebecca brought an old jacket of hers and put it on me. Thank you. You're surprisingly thoughtful. Not at all. Timothy's important mother is also important to me. And if you have something to cool my head, please. Whether Rebecca responded to my last request or not. You must be cold, Linda? So, I'll turn on the heating for you. With those words, Rebecca closed the bedroom door and left. Did Rebecca say something strange at the end,
Or was it just a slip of the tongue?
Despite my unease, it took a while for my foggy consciousness to reach a logical conclusion.
Turning on the heating, surely not.
Before I knew it, sweat was pouring out of every pore. But the real problem was that the room had become as hot as if I were in a sauna.
This prank has gone way too far. If I had realized any later, I might have been in real danger.
While venting my anger, I desperately searched for something.
Why can't I find the remote anywhere?
It seemed that Rebecca had not only set the air conditioner to heating mode, but had also taken the remote out of the room. I tried to leave the room, but for some reason, the door wouldn't open.
What's going on? What do you find enjoyable about doing this?
No matter how many times I threw my weakened body against the door, it wouldn't budge.
Rebecca! Open this door! This is too much!
Eventually, my consciousness began to fade, and I collapsed to the floor. As my consciousness faded, my hand unconsciously grabbed my mobile phone.
Anyone, please, help!
I wasn't aware of where my fingers had slid, but soon I heard a ringtone from the other side, followed by a man's voice.
Linda? What's going on? It's not like you to call me. Hello? Linda? Are you there?
Whose voice is that?
It's me, Andrew. We were in the same class in high school.
Andrew? Andrew, help me.
It sounds like you're in serious trouble. Where are you? Tell me your location.
Somehow, amidst my barely functioning brain, I managed to convey my current address and apartment number.
What's happened? Linda! Linda!
Andrew's yelling voice gradually faded away. The next time I regained consciousness.
What the hell is this? It's in the way.
The sound of a large object being kicked and knocked over echoed on the flooring, and then Andrew burst through the door.
Andrew! Linda! It's like a sauna in here. How did this happen? You're severely dehydrated, but don't worry, I'll take care of you now.
Then he called out towards the entrance.
Hey, could I get some help here, please?
The manager rushed into the room, and upon seeing my weakened state and the condition of the bedroom,
how could this happen?
He stood there in shock, as if seeing something unbelievable.
Manager, don't just stand there in a daze. Bring some water. Ah. Yes.
Just then, an oblivious Rebecca returned home and showed her face.
Who are you? And why is the manager here too? I don't have time to explain to you. What do you think you're doing, barging into someone's apartment like this? I'm calling the police. Go ahead and call if you want. Before that, I'm taking her to the hospital. I'm her high school classmate. I rushed over here after she called me, and this is what I found. What did you do to her? I didn't do anything strange. I just thought she said she was feeling cold.
Rebecca kept repeating her excuses, her face pale, but Andrew, rejecting all her words, said,
Move, you're in the way.
Several days after the incident, having fully recovered, I decided to meet Andrew in the hospital's cafe to express my gratitude for his help. I don't remember much due to my delirious state at the time, but according to the doctors and nurses who treated me, Andrew was wearing an expensive suit. Although I don't know what kind of job he has, considering his earnest and justice-filled personality and appearance, there's no doubt he's competent in his work. Hey, Linda. Glad to see you're looking much better. Today, he was dressed in casual clothes, likely because it was his day off, but still, there was a sense of luxury about him.
Thank you for the other day. I was saved because you rushed over. If you hadn't come at that time, I can't imagine what might have happened to me.
Andrew, perhaps not wanting to worry me, flashed a bright, white smile.
But I was honestly surprised to get a call from you that day. The last time we met was at our high school graduation, right? Was it? It's been that long since we last met.
Yeah. You never showed up at any reunions.
That's right. I've been busy with work. Someone mentioned at the reunion that you've been a single mother all this time. It must have been tough with work.
But now I'm living with my son and his wife in their condominium. I'm repaying a debt of gratitude.
I see. But how did you end up in that situation in the condominium? It wasn't just an accident, was it?
I hesitated about how much to divulge to an old classmate I hadn't seen in years. Yet, owing him a debt of gratitude, I decided it was best to tell him everything, holding nothing back. After listening to everything about my interactions with Rebecca, Andrew nodded slowly. Then, let me tell you everything I saw that day. With that, he began to recount in detail how he ended up at the scene that day and what he witnessed. He had been driving back to work after a meeting when he was startled by my call, prompting him to change his destination immediately. However, upon arriving at the condominium, the door was equipped with an auto-lock system, preventing easy access by outsiders. At that point, Andrew declared it an emergency situation and explained the circumstances to the manager to have the door opened.
When I entered the room, I was shocked. The first thing that caught my eye was a storage shelf placed unnaturally in front of one of the room's doors. And from the gap under the door, I could feel an intense heat. That's when I knew something was wrong.
A storage shelf? So Rebecca went that far. He handed me a business card. Upon reading the business card, I looked at him with a mix of surprise and admiration. It had his name and the title of law firm partner printed on it.
You're a lawyer?
Andrew smiled a bit sheepishly and said,
I've been a lawyer for over a decade, but getting such a surprised reaction from you makes me feel like I'm back to square one, getting all nervous.
After revealing his profession, he inquired if Rebecca had made any other unpleasant demands of me. I shared that from the beginning of my stay as a dependent, Rebecca had treated me almost like a servant, a situation I had resigned myself to as unavoidable. Then he looked at me seriously. I heard from your son, Timothy. The reason Linda started living with them in the condominium was that Timothy wanted to repay his mother for everything she had done. That might be true for him, but I had quit my job and was living part-time without any income, so staying there was really the only option for me. Still, you quit your job because the harsh working conditions were too much for your health, right? You worked hard, even to the detriment of your health, for Timothy's sake. He understands that. Timothy said that? When Linda was hospitalized for dehydration without consciousness, Timothy shared a lot with me. He really wanted to repay his mother more adequately but felt guilty that he hadn't done enough.
He has nothing to feel guilty about.
You have every right to refuse Rebecca's unreasonable demands. After all, the reason for living in that condominium was Timothy's desire to repay his mother, Linda. Yet, Rebecca, his wife, not only failed to honor that intent but repeatedly treated you terribly. We have a strong case if it comes to court. As a lawyer, I want to protect you. Andrew's words ignited a dormant fighting spirit within me.
Thank you. I'll tell you everything I know.
Thus, the heating incident was brought to court. As the defendant, Rebecca appeared in court with a sour expression.
It wasn't me who turned on the heating, it was Linda herself. Probably she doesn't remember because she was delirious from the fever. It was undoubtedly you, Rebecca, who turned on the heating. The air conditioner in the guest room was practically new, having never been used before. Yet, Curiously, your fingerprints were all over the remote. That's because I put the batteries in it after it was decided Linda would use that bedroom.
That's strange. No fingerprints were found on the batteries. You used that remote to set the temperature to an unnaturally high level and then placed a storage shelf in front of the door to prevent it from being opened from the inside.
Prevented it from being opened? Where's the evidence for that?
It's not just me. The manager was there as a witness, too. When Andrew said that, Rebecca glared at the property manager in the audience and clicked her tongue.
Just a few minutes after the heating was activated, you were recorded leaving the condominium by the security cameras. You knowingly left knowing the plaintiff could be in danger.
Rebecca's abnormal actions were revealed one by one, causing an uproar in the courtroom. Despite Rebecca's repeated attempts to counter-argue, her responses were off the mark, eventually leading even her own lawyer to despair.
Just as promised, we won the trial, Linda. Thank you, Andrew. Not only did you save my life, but you also fought for me in court. I can't thank you enough for everything.
The court ordered the defendant to pay a substantial amount in damages for the treatment costs and the mental anguish caused to the plaintiff.
But why? Why did you go to such lengths for me?
Andrew smiled shyly, like a boy, and confessed.
I've had a crush on you since high school.
What? I had no idea. I thought you were just into your books and not interested in romance. I laughed out loud, but Andrew, with a serious gaze. Those feelings haven't changed. I was actually happy when you called me for help that day. It meant you were relying on me. That was just a coincidence. I was delirious and my finger just moved on its own. It's not something out of a romantic movie.
Even so, I believe it was fate. God meant for us to reunite. No matter what anyone says, that's what it is. But you must have been disappointed to reunite with such an old lady like me.
No, not at all.
In fact, you seem even more radiant now.
Do you have a family, Andrew?
Still single. Among our classmates, I'm probably the only one unmarried, always the butt of jokes.
A wonderful man like you will find a partner in no time. Would it be so wrong if that partner were you, Linda? I'm just an over 40-year-old lady with a grown son. I quit my job because I couldn't endure the harsh labor. I've never even thought about remarriage. It's too unrealistic.
Please don't force yourself to find demeaning words about yourself. I promised to protect you as a lawyer, and I did. Now, as a man, I want you. What do you think?
At that moment, something warm surged within me. Unable to articulate my feelings, tears rolled down my cheeks. Yes. I managed to say that one word and nodded again and again. Later, Timothy decided to formally divorce Rebecca. I'm sorry, Mom. I had no idea you were being treated so terribly behind my back.
I'm sorry. It ended up breaking up your marriage.
I was filled with regret. Don't worry about it, Mom. It's actually good that I saw Rebecca's true nature. If we had continued our marriage, her flaws would have been revealed in another way someday. It was fate. Fate. Hearing you say that makes me feel a bit better. Speaking of fate, wasn't it fate with Andrew?
Maybe. Was this all fate?
I smiled playfully, but Timothy, with a dependable big brother look. It's said that natural pregnancy becomes difficult after 40. Yet, Mom, you're almost 3 months along, right? The fact that you happened to call Andrew, who turned out to be a skilled lawyer, and now your pregnancy. There's no denying its fate. Faced with such a wonderful series of coincidences, I too began to believe this was meant to be. As I caressed my belly, cherishing the new life within, I vowed to protect those I love for as long as I live.
Seems like a son's wife is just an outsider, huh? No need to waste fancy coffee on a stranger like you. We'll enjoy it ourselves.
With that, Emil grinned wickedly. Well, if that's how it's going to be, so be it. This is a game. A doubles game between Emil Elizabeth and Sale Felicia versus me and my husband. Strategy is key in a game. Just you watch. So, I cheerfully responded, gladly, with a big smile. My name is Diana. A 32-year-old working mother. Married to Elliot for 5 years. The day to build our own house has finally arrived. Building a house has been our goal since the beginning of our marriage. We visited various houses, took our time deciding, and diligently saved up. When our child was born 2 years into the marriage, our plans hit a snag. But Elliot and I persevered, and finally, we reached our savings goal. However, actually building the house was harder than imagined. A house is a big purchase. You can't just buy another if something goes wrong. We considered factors like transportation convenience, shopping accessibility, a child-friendly environment, and the reputation of local schools. And whether it was an easy commute for Elliot, a full-time employee. So many things to consider, even just finding the right location was tough. We eventually settled near the in-laws' house. It wasn't out of preference, but because the location was good. It wasn't about living together, but about bearing with minor annoyances. Once the land was decided, it was time to order the house. This was another challenge. Building our ideal home, with budget at the forefront, was full of issues. We progressed, step by step. But complicating matters further were Elizabeth and Felicia. For some reason, they kept interfering. When we mentioned building a house, both suddenly became interested. Elizabeth's eyes sparkled, and Felicia, in her late 20s and single, was excited.
Where will it be built? Which home builder are you using? What will the interior look like?
They asked all sorts of questions. I tried to brush them off. But then they somehow found out about our meetings with the home builder and the architect and started crashing them. How do they even find these things out? Sorry, it was me who talked. Elliot apologized. So you're the culprit? Even glaring at him, it was too late.
If the kitchen storage is too little,
Elizabeth would say,
having a wooden deck is essential.
Felicia would add, somebody, please sew these two's mouths shut.
If you're doing barbecues in the garden, a big sink would be useful. A walk-in closet should be bigger, too. The windows should definitely be double-glazed for soundproofing. We'll need a bedroom for Mom and Dad, right? Shouldn't there be a room for Felicia to stay in too?
One after another. Wait, hold on. Why do we need a bedroom for the parents-in-law? And what's this about a room for Felicia? Ignoring Elliot and me, Elizabeth and Felicia, with almost a smirk, keep butting in, making the architect give a wry smile. After they left, I had to confirm with Elliot. I hoped not, but I had this bad feeling.
Hey, we're not planning to live together, right?
From their manner of speaking, I couldn't shake the feeling they were plotting just that. I hesitantly asked Elliot, who shook his head in a hurry.
No way! Dad wouldn't think of leaving the house he's used to. And Felicia's old enough, even if our parents' house was gone, there's no way she'd move in with us. That's what I thought.
Elliot denied it, but my anxiety didn't disappear. Somehow ignoring Elizabeth and Felicia's interference, we decided on the design and started construction. And a year later, our dream house was finally completed. It was tough, long, and oh so annoying. Lying on the living room sofa after moving in, I closed my eyes and recalled all the hardships. It was educational and fun looking at various properties.
Hey Mom, is it okay to put my cup here? Why not? Let's use this corner of the cupboard for mine and Felicia's things.
There were times, pointed out by the architect, when I felt disheartened by the difference between the ideal and the reality.
The best room on the second floor has to be sunny, right? I'll take the biggest one? Yeah, I'm getting old, a small room would be tiring.
Let's go with that. I really wanted to plant a viburnum in the garden. But who knew I'd have to research the type of soil, too.
Okay, then I'll call the moving company.
Thanks. You're reliable, Felicia. And then there's, wait, what's with these people swarming my house?
Elizabeth and Felicia. Why are you meddling with things inside the house? We're just moving things to make it more livable.
Felicia replied nonchalantly to my question. My clothes, still in boxes, were pushed to a corner, and somehow Felicia's clothes were making their way into the closet. Elizabeth too.
This new house is nice. It's exciting,
said, making herself coffee and starting to eat cookies. No, crumbs on the floor.
Hey, both of you, stop doing whatever you please. This is our house, you know.
I shouted, panicked, as the two behaved as if they were the ones who would be living here. But at that moment, the atmosphere changed.
What are you talking about?
Felicia said.
Huh?
As I tilted my head in confusion, Felicia pointed and continued.
This house was built by my brother Elliot.
Elizabeth nodded in agreement.
That's right. It's my son Elliot's house. What's wrong with parents or siblings living here?
There's plenty wrong with it. The worry I had since before the house was built seemed to be turning into reality. Could it be these two?
Then that settles it. Felicia and I will take the big room on the second floor. The room next to it will be Elliot's, no problem, right? There's a big problem. The big room is for me and my husband, and the next room is for our son.
What are you talking about?
Elliot and the grandson can just share.
What Elizabeth said made no sense.
No, it's too small for Elliot, me, and our son.
Elliot and the grandson can manage.
I'm here too, you know.
What are you talking about? That's when Elizabeth looked at me with a sinister smile.
Listen here. This house was built by Elliot, who's related by blood. That means it's the right of his blood relatives to live here. You're just an outsider, a stranger. You should just sleep on that sofa over there,
she said, pointing to the sofa. You're kidding, right? Elizabeth and Felicia seem serious about living in this house. My precious home is about to be occupied by this alien mother-daughter duo. Worried, I consulted Elliot that night. Luckily, they hadn't stayed over yet, but since they were talking about movers, they might seriously start living here soon.
Hey, are you really going to give them the biggest room?
No way. Of course not. When I told Elliot about today, he frowned.
But they're talking about turning our room into Elizabeth and Felicia's room?
That's a bit much. Elliot, looking troubled, tilted his head and talked with Elizabeth and Felicia the next day. And I thought they understood.
What, Elizabeth? What are you doing?
We're moving in. They didn't get it at all. During the day, when our son was at daycare and Elliot was at work, Elizabeth arrived with movers and started bringing in boxes.
Moving in!
Really, such an inflexible daughter-in-law. Why should we have to settle for a small room? That's practically ungrateful. After all, a son's wife is just a stranger.
Didn't Elliot tell you anything? He did. No to the big room.
What a narrowed-down version of the story. Living in this house at all is the problem. I was stunned as they moved everything in. The space intended for our son's room was now occupied by heaps of cardboard boxes, and then Felicia arrived. Oh no, it's a small room.
Felicia. What on earth? Hi, Diana, let's get along from now on. Since it's the joyous first day of moving in, let's have a luxurious dinner, okay? No.
Ignoring me, Elizabeth and Felicia disappeared into their room and closed the door. Oh, great. Due to Elizabeth and Felicia's surprise invasion, our new home was now occupied by the enemy. Suddenly, I was living with the occupying force. Cleaning, laundry, cooking, all my responsibility, which I wasn't happy about. And them using our stuff without permission was upsetting. But I couldn't really tell them not to use things since we were living together. As I was thinking this, Felicia took out a bottle of wine. That was something I bought for myself, but before I could say anything, she drank it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Elizabeth generously using my expensive lotion. That's expensive stuff. I ordered various things for the luxurious dinner, and of course, I had to pay. Elizabeth and Felicia ate all the delivered dinner. I didn't get a single bite. Elizabeth and Felicia always took showers before me, my husband, and our son. And they always left the hot water running. They never contributed to the utility bills. And they watched TV late into the night at high volume. The house was a mess, dirty everywhere. I'm always positive. Gradually, the absurdity became amusing. I decided to enjoy it. This was a hospitality game with Elizabeth and Felicia. Getting angry is bad for the skin, after all. So, let the hospitality game begin. One holiday. During a day off when Elliot and our son were home, Felicia woke up scratching her head and sat at the dining table. And she asked me, I'm so sleepy. Didn't get enough sleep. Is there coffee? Still sleepy after sleeping till noon. Then Elizabeth woke up. And similarly,
Diana, make some coffee,
she said, so I stood up. This is a game, a game. I win if I impress them. With that thought, I opened the cabinet with the coffee.
Let's see, there should be the instant coffee I bought yesterday.
It was a bit more expensive than usual. I showed it with a smug face, but they both looked disappointed. Don't they like it? Then Felicia stood up and started searching the cabinet. And
found it,
she said, taking out coffee beans.
Those are from a gift Elliot got from his boss.
It's not just any coffee, it's premium. We don't drink coffee from beans at home, so it was kind of wasted on us. Misunderstanding my expression, Felicia smirked.
What, hiding such good beans, Diana? You're so mean. Eh?
Elizabeth nodded at Felicia's words.
Really? You don't want us, who are not blood-related, to drink delicious coffee. You're definitely an outsider. Such an outsider doesn't deserve this luxury coffee. What?
We'll drink this gifted premium coffee. An outsider like you is fine with instant coffee, lol. And Elizabeth laughed. This is not making any sense. But there's no interpreter. For me, it's actually a relief that they're using up the bean coffee. Seeing Elliot nodding in agreement.
Sure, I'd be glad to,
I said with a smile. She probably didn't expect that kind of response.
What?
Elizabeth looked surprised. Ignoring that, I took the coffee beans from Felicia.
All right, I'll make some delicious coffee now. Okay then.
Felicia seemed puzzled by my smile. There I was, rolling up my sleeves, ready to go. Let the game begin, making delicious coffee. But when I opened the bag and saw the beans, I was a bit stumped. I called Elliot, who was looking worried, for a consultation. He came over as I gestured.
What's up? Hey! How do you use coffee beans?
I've never made coffee from beans before. I asked Elliot, but I don't know either. He replied. Now we're in trouble. Our game of making the best coffee has hit a snag right from the start. Should we look it up online? No, that's the last resort. What to do then? Just have to wring out whatever little knowledge we have.
I think you have to grind them into a powder,
said Elliot. Okay, that makes sense.
But we don't have a mill or a blender. What about a mortar?
It got lost during the move. After some thought.
Maybe it's fine just to use the beans as they are?
I strongly agreed with Elliot's suggestion. So, let's give it a try. Beans as they are, into the coffee maker's filter. Okay, pour hot water over this.
Look, Diana, it's getting color. Really? So it's a success.
The color is super light, but surely that's what premium coffee looks like. Encouraged, we continued pouring hot water.
It's done. We've made premium coffee.
We proudly presented it to Elizabeth and Felicia. Elizabeth and Felicia sighed deeply at us.
Finally done? How long did it take you to? Seriously. Because of a stranger son's wife, time is wasted. It's so light.
Elizabeth smirked as she criticized me, then screamed when she saw the coffee.
What? It's so light. Is this tea?
Felicia frowned at the coffee too. We, the couple, shook our heads in disbelief.
Genuine premium coffee, extracted from high-quality beans. It's probably light in color because it's high class. We have milk and sugar if you need, but you should try it straight first.
With a musical note, I cheerfully pushed the cups towards them.
But... Please, go ahead. Elliot, is this really premium coffee? Yeah, the finest kind Diana and I made. Try it.
After being cheerfully encouraged by both of us, they reluctantly tasted the coffee. Immediately after.
So weak. Disgusting.
Elizabeth and Felicia both exclaimed.
What is this? This is not coffee. What is this? It's definitely weird. Diana, how did you make this coffee?
I just poured hot water over the beans.
What?
Was something wrong? I looked at Elliot, but he just shrugged. Weird, I just made it normally.
Too high class for your taste? Huh? I am a woman who suits high class stuff. It's this coffee that's odd. Ah, good. Then please drink it all. No, but I mean... Here you go.
If high-end stuff suits them, they'll surely get used to it while drinking. So, there's only one thing to do. I pushed the coffee cup to Felicia's mouth and made her drink forcefully. Meanwhile, Elliot, calling it filial piety, was encouraging Elizabeth to drink. Now, this is getting fun. The daily game is enjoyable.
Elizabeth, shall we clean your room? Hey, at least knock first. Sorry. Since you always enter our room without knocking, I thought it wasn't necessary. Felicia, all this stuff on the floor is trash, right? I'll throw it all away. That's a premium bag. Elizabeth, since you said the seasoning was too light yesterday, I made it stronger today. Too strong. Not just strong, it's spicy.
Felicia, it seems you like my lotion, but I have something better. It has a unique smell, but it's good for your skin.
Smelly! What is this? Don't put it on my face!
The game of pleasing them was getting more and more fun. I continued to serve them with increasing enthusiasm. They cried with joy, so I win. Elliot was also doing various things, but as I spend more time with them, I have the advantage. Then one day, Elizabeth and Felicia disappeared. Huh? Then I received a call from Fael. Oh right, Freddie from the in-laws' house. How has he been? Enjoying a carefree solo life? That's good. According to Freddie,
Elizabeth and Felicia came back crying. What happened? Elizabeth's lips are swollen, and Felicia's skin is shiny but smells terrible,
he said. They must have been so happy they went to report to Freddie. But they shouldn't think it's over yet. There's a barbecue in the garden tonight. I'm setting up a trampoline for Elizabeth and Felicia to enjoy, so I'll go pick them up now, I announced and went to fetch them from the in-laws' house. For some reason, they ran away, and a chase began. Eventually, I easily caught elderly Elizabeth and Felicia, who boasted about knowing all the hiding spots since childhood, was found by Elliot.
Stop it! Stop it, please!
They cried with joy, no need to be shy. A few days later, movers suddenly arrived and took Elizabeth and Felicia's stuff away. Why? I wanted to show more hospitality, I said to them hiding behind Freddie at the in-laws' house, and they shook their heads vigorously with pale faces. Elliot looked genuinely disappointed. Hey Elliot, seems like our hospitality wasn't enough for Elizabeth and them. Is that so? Maybe we need to study more. Hearing this conversation, Elizabeth and Felicia began to tremble. After that, Elizabeth and Felicia stopped coming to our house. Even when I greet them in the neighborhood, hello, they run away immediately. Well, it's fine. Peaceful days returned. We remodeled their room into our son's room, and were even talking about having another child. Feeling a bit unfulfilled now the game is over, unnoticed Freddie stood beside me. The real ditzy ones never realize they're ditzy, do they? And muttered.
You just stay home all day, right? Tired from just cleaning? Why don't you try switching places with me and see the real struggle? Maybe I should divorce such a useless wife.
Ugh, not this again. The way my husband treats me, a homemaker, is truly exhausting. My name is Jennifer. I'm a 34-year-old woman. I married David, my coworker, 2 years ago after a workplace romance. Back then, I planned to continue working after marriage. But David said,
I'll work hard outside. You take care of the home. That's my ideal. Men work outside, women protect the home.
I naively agreed. I quit my job to become a full-time homemaker, influenced by David's perspective. I used to be easily swayed by others' opinions. Above all, I deeply loved David. So, I followed whatever he said without questioning. I guess I was blinded by love. If only I had stood my ground and not quit my job. Maybe things wouldn't have turned out this way. That's what I still believe. People think homemakers just laze around at home all day. But in reality, it's not like that. Cleaning, laundry, neighborhood meetings, they all consume more time than one might think. Doing all these tasks daily by myself is honestly tough. Employees get weekends off, but homemakers don't. So, on Sundays when David's home, I'd ask, "Hey, I'm a bit busy. Could you help clean the bathroom?" But he'd instantly get grumpy.
Seriously? I work every day to provide, and now you want me to work at home too? Who do you think provides the meals?
If I dared to say, "I appreciate your hard work during the week, but we're a team, right? Can't you help out a bit on your days off?" David would snap back.
Stop bossing me around. You think you can survive on your own, just being a homemaker? Want a divorce?
David immediately snapped.
Who do you think you are? Just because you're home all day doesn't mean you can boss me around. Want me to divorce you? Think you, just a housewife, can survive on your own?
Shockingly, he threatened divorce. I was at a loss for words. Maybe I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. From then on, every time I said something, David would end with,
"If you don't like it, let's divorce."
It felt like he was using that phrase to control me. Even though I used to work, I had retired and become a housewife. The idea of divorce that David kept bringing up was terrifying. If he really divorced me, how would I survive? What about income? Where would I live? For me, a housewife, nothing was scarier than the thought of divorce. What scared me the most was David himself. He used to be so kind. How did he change so much after we got married? Did I make a mistake in judging him? I deeply regretted marrying David. Lately, as soon as David comes home, he'd say,
"Isn't it obvious you should greet me at the door when I, the breadwinner, come home? Who do you think pays for everything here?"
Yes, David earns the money, but I take care of everything at home. We're supposed to be partners, not in a master-servant relationship. It's supposed to be an equal relationship. Yet, David seems to believe he's superior. He looks down on me, thinking he's above. At first, I thought maybe he was venting work frustrations on me. So I kept quiet. But over time, David began to act like he was always right. And every day was like this. After his lecture, David carelessly throws his suit all over the place and changes into casual clothes. I pick them up and toss them into the washing machine. This is a daily routine. Even after eating the dinner I prepared, he complains.
"Is this all you can cook? I work hard for you, and this is the meal I come home to? Where's your gratitude?"
I've grown tired of dealing with David's constant complaints. Despite David not earning a high salary, I manage our finances, saving for our future children, leaving little room for extra expenses. Still, I always try to prepare healthy meals, using nutritious ingredients and cutting down on salt. Yet, he still finds reasons to complain. I felt like everything I did was being negated, and my self-confidence dwindled day by day. On top of that, he demands $500 a month for his personal expenses. If I gave him that much, our finances would be in the red. At first, I used some of my savings to cover the expenses, but that wasn't sustainable. So, I tapped into my connections and started a remote job that I could do from home. Of course, I didn't tell David. You see, a while back I had mentioned, "Hey, things are a bit tight with our finances. I was thinking of getting a part-time job. Is that okay?" To which he snapped.
What? Are you saying I don't earn enough? You probably just want extra cash to splurge, right? You should just stick to taking care of the house.
Knowing David, I was sure that if I earned, he'd just take more for his personal expenses. So, I decided to work remotely without telling David. The money I earned went towards our living expenses and savings for the future. A former colleague introduced me to his remote job. I would log into the company system and handle administrative tasks, mainly settling travel expenses claimed by employees. Having experience from my previous job, the work wasn't challenging. More than that, being home all day, this remote job gave me a sense of purpose. It felt rewarding. Then, one day, after juggling remote work and household chores, I was exhausted. I decided to take a short break and lay down on the sofa. That was a mistake. I unintentionally fell asleep and was awakened by David in the evening. It was already night. Of course, dinner wasn't ready, and neither was the bathroom. David, seeing this, sighed and said,
What were you doing all day? Lounging around? Neglecting the house? I come home and you're just napping on the sofa. Seriously, homemakers are just leeches.
Usually I wouldn't react to David's words, but that day I was tired, so I snapped back. What's your problem? I just happened to fall asleep today. Stop making it sound like I do nothing all day. David, not expecting a retort, turned red with anger.
You're defying me? I'm the head of this household. How dare you speak to me in that tone? If you're going to be defiant, leave this house.
Well, maybe I will. I've been waiting to take some time for myself anyway. It was a classic case of tit for tat. I quickly packed some essentials and headed to a nearby hotel. The look of shock on David's face as I left was priceless. He probably never imagined I'd actually leave. In the past, I would have just been bewildered if David told me to leave. But now, things were different. After all, I had my remote job as a source of income. Being confined to the house and only doing household chores, this job became my only connection to the outside world. The feeling of being appreciated and thanked directly for my work. Seeing my efforts being rewarded with a paycheck. Having never received gratitude from David for all the housework, this job had become a significant part of my life. Thanks to my remote job, I gained confidence and strength. Maybe some time apart would be good for both of us. With that thought, I lived in the hotel for about a week. During that time, I continued my remote work from the hotel and even uncovered some fraudulent activities by an employee. Then, one day, my phone rang. It was David. I was thinking it might be time for me to return home. So I hoped this call would be the perfect opportunity. When I answered, David said,
Hey, isn't it about time you came back? You've had some time to reflect, right?
Who does he think needs to reflect here? Even as I was at loss for words, David continued.
You must be missing me, right? Life must be tough without me. If you apologize, I'll let you come back home.
Such arrogance from him. Who does he think he is? So I decided to play it humble and said, I'm really sorry. It was my fault. I miss you every day. Please let me come back home. To my surprise, he responded with such relief.
I knew it. You can't handle life without me. Fine, come back home.
He couldn't even see through my act. I was taken aback, but decided to return home with an innocent face. When I got back, the house was a complete mess. Clothes were scattered all over the floor, with no place to step. Trash overflowed from the bin, giving off a foul smell. Dirty dishes piled up in the sink. In just a week, he managed to turn the place upside down. I was almost impressed. I thought maybe he'd have cooled off in my absence. Maybe he'd have taken care of the house. All my maybes were shattered. He probably called me back because he couldn't handle the mess anymore. Not because he missed me or felt sorry. Realizing this, I was disappointed in David. I couldn't believe it had come to this. I was once again disappointed by David's carelessness. But in a way, I was grateful, because it gave me the push I needed to do what I had planned for David without any hesitation. For about a month, I acted as if nothing was wrong at home. I cleaned up the mess David made and followed his every command, even when he complained. Then, the day of reckoning came. I executed the plan I had prepared and waited for David to come home. I didn't prepare dinner or even the bathroom. When David came home, he was angry that I hadn't greeted him at the door or prepared dinner. I simply apologized. I'm sorry, I was so busy today and couldn't get to it. Feeling empowered by my submissive attitude, David lashed out even more than usual, and then he said those words.
You're just a parasite, you know. You can't earn money and can't even manage the house properly. I wonder what would happen to a woman like you if we divorced. Maybe I should just file for divorce, huh?
I had been waiting for him to say that. The word divorce that David flaunted like a badge of honor. With a smile, I replied, You don't need to file. I've already prepared the divorce papers. David looked confused, so I showed him the actual divorce papers, already signed by me. All you need to do is sign. David started to panic. Of course, he never expected me to agree to a divorce.
What? No. You'd be the one in trouble if we divorced, right?
Don't worry. I'll be just fine. Haven't you noticed? Look around the house. Don't you see? David looked around frantically.
Where's the TV? The fridge is gone too. What's going on?
Oh, did you forget? I brought the TV and the fridge when we moved in. So, it's only natural that I take them with me when we divorce. I had everything I bought removed by professionals.
Wait, you can't divorce me. How will you survive without my income?
See, I sighed. Don't you get it? The person handling expense claims at your company, that's me. We never met face to face, only communicated through chat or email. So you never realized? Yes, I was working remotely for my former workplace, which is David's company. The old acquaintance I mentioned was a colleague from that company. I had been hired part-time on the condition of remote work. I used my maiden name as my family name and kept my first name. At first, I thought David might find out. But that was needless worry. For me, David had long forgotten my maiden name. I'll tell you one last thing. Your expense claims were clearly off compared to others. So I looked into it. I've already reported the results to our boss. The employee misconduct I discovered while at the hotel was none other than David. While handling David's expense reports, I found several suspicious claims. Claims for travel expenses, for supposed business trips and hotel stays. But as his wife, I knew David was home on those days. David was trying to embezzle money by claiming fake business trips. He probably thought he'd gotten away with it. But as his wife, it was clear to me he hadn't actually gone on those trips. So I cross-referenced his past claims with his actions on those days and investigated all his fraudulent claims. At first, I wondered if I could somehow brush it under the rug, but after a week in the hotel and hearing David's words over the phone and seeing the state of our home, I made up my mind. I'd be the one to end things with this man. I've already reported it to our boss, and I've asked for appropriate action to be taken. Tomorrow, when David goes to work, he'll be called into the boss's office and questioned severely. He was misusing company money after all. It's only right. Thank you for everything. I'll be happy on my own. Goodbye. My belongings have already been shipped to my new place. All that's left is for me to leave this house. Leaving a stunned David behind, I walked out of the house with a spring in my step. Later on, David was dismissed from the company. Being dismissed makes it hard to find another job, and it seems David is still unemployed and attending a job support center. Of course, the house is reportedly a mess. David was reluctant to sign the divorce papers and kept asking me to come back, but I had no intention of doing so. I left all the procedures to my lawyer and finalized the divorce. As for me, I switched from remote work to full-time and fully returned to work. I'll be single for a while, but I plan to look for a new relationship soon. Of course, my criteria for a partner is someone who's willing to share both household chores and child rearing.
Here's a celebration gift, $2,000. After giving birth and returning to my husband's family home, my mother-in-law handed us an envelope with $2,000 as a baby gift. I checked the contents and then threw the envelope into the trash. Was this their payback for enduring days of being belittled by my mother-in-law and senior employees? What are you doing? Apologize to Mom, I scolded my flustered husband. Can you say the same after seeing this? My husband, after checking the envelope's contents, glared at his mother with anger he had never shown before. And then he made a decision. My name is Scarlett Wood, 28 years old. I had an arranged marriage with my husband, Elijah. Elijah, 2 years older than me, is the eldest son of a Japanese sweets shop and was raised strictly as the heir, but he is a very gentle and kind person. From the moment we first met, I was drawn to his kindness. I want people around the world to know the beauty and delicate taste of Japanese sweets, so I work as a Japanese sweets artisan. Will you help make my dream come true? Elijah said this and presented me with a Japanese sweet made in my image instead of an engagement ring. As I was moved to tears, Elijah continued to speak. When we get married, Scarlett, you'll work as the young mistress of our shop. Also, we'll live with my parents in our family home. Is that okay? Living with my in-laws was a condition of the marriage. There's a lot that comes with marrying an heir, but as long as Elijah is with me, everything will be fine. Thinking this way, I accepted his proposal. We became husband and wife. As promised, after the marriage, we started living with my in-laws in the residence that also served as the Japanese sweets shop. Scarlett, you married into this family, so of course you should be prepared. Behave properly as the young mistress. Yes. The day I stepped into my husband's family home, I was already met with harsh words from my mother-in-law. The sweet married life I had dreamt of didn't exist in this world. Scarlett, how many times do I have to tell you? Learn our traditions properly. Please be more aware that you're the young mistress and act accordingly. It's so hard on our headmistress to have someone like you marry into our family. I faced daily criticism from my mother-in-law and senior female employees. My father-in-law didn't speak much, but when he was watching me, I felt tense and would sometimes make mistakes because of it. He would sigh loudly, seeing my performance. There was no place for me to feel at ease in this house. But I was determined to work hard, earn everyone's approval, and become a wife Elijah wouldn't be ashamed of. That feeling alone kept me going. During this time, I found out I was pregnant. Take care of yourself and give birth to a fine heir. Everyone, starting with my mother-in-law, began to be more considerate of my condition. At the 5-month pregnancy checkup, I learned the baby's gender and excitedly shared the news during dinner with my in-laws and Elijah. Our baby is a girl. For a moment, everyone froze. A girl? Oh, a girl. Huh. Wait, no one is offering congratulations. Elijah kept his gaze down, silently continuing to eat without making eye contact with anyone. I was taken aback by everyone's attitude. Does an heir have to be a boy? Unable to understand the Mr. Wood family's mindset, I ate my meal in frustration. The next day, everyone's attitude changed completely. Pregnancy isn't an illness. Stop being spoiled and work hard. As soon as they found out the baby was a girl, the criticism and mistreatment from my mother-in-law and senior employees returned. Why can't a girl inherit the Japanese sweets shop? I felt sorry for my unborn child, who wouldn't be welcomed into the world with smiles and blessings. I made up my mind to protect her, no matter what. I think you've noticed, Elijah, I've been criticized every day since I married into this family. The way they treat me since they found out our child is a girl is unbearable. One day, I couldn't take it anymore and told Elijah. He looked troubled. Scarlett, I'm sorry. I'm still in training. I don't have the right to oppose this family. Please bear with it. If you learn your job quickly, I'm sure my mother and others will stop criticizing you. I'm very happy whether our child is a boy or a girl. Please take care of yourself. With that, Elijah quickly went to take a bath. Though he tried to be considerate, I was shocked by how unreliable Elijah was. But I rubbed my belly. I can't let this get me down. I'm going to be a mother. I must become strong for that reason. With that in mind, I endured the mistreatment and criticism alone. dreaming of the day my child would be born healthy. In my in-laws' home, I was mainly responsible for cooking dinner. When buying groceries, I'd pay for them first, then give the receipt to my mother-in-law, who would reimburse me. This system made it difficult to buy what I wanted since she checked the receipts meticulously. Because of this system and my mother-in-law's thorough examination of the receipts, it was hard for me to buy things I really wanted to eat. However, after becoming pregnant, I often found myself craving sour and sweet foods. Should I buy it? But I don't want my mother-in-law to make snide remarks again. I debated while shopping, but never found the courage to buy anything. One day, though, I desperately wanted something sweet. Feeling helpless, I agonized over it before finally asking Elijah, who was working in the shop. "Oh, I can't help but crave sweets because of the pregnancy. Can I have some scraps or something if there are any?" "Sure, just wait a moment." Elijah secretly wrapped up some leftover scraps from making the sweets in plastic wrap, avoiding the eyes of the employees. "Thank you." But just then, my mother-in-law appeared. "What are you doing here, Scarlett?" My mother-in-law's gaze falls on my hand. "Well, how shameless. This is the workshop for the artisans. I won't allow you to come in here anymore." Saying this, she snatches the scraps Elijah had given me and kicks me out of the workshop. One day, as I open the fridge to prepare dinner, I find it packed with high-end ingredients like luxurious Wagyu beef that I've never seen before. Since I can't use the fridge's contents without my mother-in-law's permission, I ask her for confirmation. "Can I use the food in the fridge?" "What are you talking about? That's for Natalie, who's coming back the day after tomorrow. Don't you dare use it," she coldly responds. Natalie is Elijah's sister. She married into a farming family and now, 3 months pregnant and suffering from morning sickness, she's apparently coming back to her parents' house. Returning home just 3 months into her pregnancy. I'm 7 months pregnant and I've been used and abused, being told pregnancy isn't an illness. I have a lot on my mind, but the more I think about it, the more miserable I become. So I pull myself together and prepare dinner using the other ingredients. On the day Natalie returns home, my mother-in-law is in high spirits from mourning. She had originally opposed Natalie marrying into the farming family and seems overjoyed to have her back home after a long time. "I'll cook dinner today, Scarlett, so you can go and take a leisurely walk." Unusually, my mother-in-law is kind. Usually, I'm busy in the evenings and can't take leisurely walks, so I decide to take advantage of her offer. The sky is so high. The sky I look up at after a long time is dyed red and it warmly envelops me. When I suddenly touch my belly, I feel the baby move. "Mommy will work hard for you, so come out healthy and strong," I whisper to my unborn child. Oh, what a delicious smell. When I return home, I'm greeted by the aroma of grilled steak. As I try to enter the living room, I hear voices from the inside. "Natalie, eat a lot for the sake of your baby." Peeking inside, I see my mother-in-law has lined up a variety of dishes in front of Natalie. At the table, my father-in-law and Elijah are silently eating steak. "What about Scarlett's portion?" The moment Elijah says this and looks up, our eyes meet. "Oh, don't worry. I made some stew for her." At my mother-in-law's reply, Elijah says nothing and looks away from me. There's no steak for me. I can't take it anymore and quietly go to our bedroom, trying not to draw attention. I'm pregnant, just like Natalie, yet no one tells me to eat a lot. Seeing the reality that I'm being excluded, I can't hold back my tears any longer. Why do I have to suffer like this? Neither my unborn child nor I are welcomed in this house. I just want to leave this place. My tears keep flowing endlessly. After a while, Elijah comes in with a cold piece of steak. "I secretly brought you my portion. It's cold, but I'm sorry for making you feel even sadder with my sister here. He genuinely apologizes, looking remorseful. I should be more assertive, but I'm not good with my mom and sister. My mom struggled with my grandma, so she probably thinks this is normal for a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship. My sister didn't like me since I was little because I was the eldest son and got a lot of attention. And she's always been mean to me behind my back. They're both strong-willed and troublesome. So honestly, I don't want to deal with them. Your family issues have nothing to do with me. Although he apologized, I realize he won't particularly protect me or our child in the future. Feeling even more miserable due to Elijah's unreliability, I eat the steak he offers, though I have no appetite, thinking of the baby in my belly. Even though it's supposed to be high-quality meat, I can't taste it. I mechanically chew and somehow manage to swallow it. Life after Natalie's return is even harder for pregnant me. Scarlett, please fetch this for me. My mother-in-law doesn't hesitate to make me work despite my big belly. Natalie, you should rest until your morning sickness subsides. Meanwhile, Natalie takes advantage of being pampered by her parents and lounges around the house all day. We're both pregnant, but even though my belly is much bigger, it's frustrating, but for now, I have to quietly endure it. Scarlett, I brought some pudding for you. The fact that Elijah started secretly buying me food I wanted to eat because he must have felt sorry for the unbearable treatment I was receiving was at least a small comfort. One day, I happened to see that Natalie's room was filled with high-end branded baby products and maternity items. I had held back and bought everything at a cheap store on the outskirts of town. Both our children would be grandchildren to my in-laws, so why is there such a difference? I tried not to care, but it made me very sad. On December 20th, I finally gave birth to a baby girl. Elijah cried tears of joy. I'll grow up quickly and protect both you and our child. Elijah made this promise to me. When we returned to my in-laws' house after being discharged from the hospital, my mother-in-law surprisingly welcomed us with a smile. Let me hold her for a bit. I handed the baby to my mother-in-law, and as expected, she was skilled at soothing the baby since she had raised 2 children herself. I guess she loves her grandchild after all. I felt a little relieved seeing my mother-in-law's demeanor. After a while, she returned the baby to me and took an envelope out of her pocket to give to Elijah. Here's a gift, $2,000. What? That much? I was surprised, but Elijah didn't seem too shocked. Maybe in this family, it's normal to give that much as a gift. Elijah handed the envelope to me without checking the contents, so I put the baby in the crib before accepting it. I checked the contents, just in case. What? What is this? My mother-in-law looked away, smirking. Enough already. I threw the envelope into the trash. Hey, what are you doing? Apologize to my mom. Elijah panicked. Would you say the same thing if you saw this? I picked up the discarded envelope and showed Elijah the contents. Upon seeing it, Elijah furrowed his brows. Unbelievably, instead of $2,000, the envelope contained a bundle of receipts and invoices for luxury food and maternity items that my in-laws had prepared for Natalie. What's the meaning of this, Mom? Even Elijah raised his voice. It's only natural for the eldest son's family to pay for our household expenses. My mother-in-law shamelessly spouted nonsense. Why should we have to pay for the maternity items and baby gear meant for Natalie, who had married into our family? I can't stay silent any longer. I made up my mind to leave this house with my child. At that moment, Elijah's low voice echoed, I'm leaving this house. What? The room went quiet, and everyone, including me, looked at Elijah. Elijah glared at his mother with a rage I'd never seen before. What do you think we are? Your attitude towards Scarlett, how you acted when you found out our child is a girl, and how you always interfere with the store I was put in charge of. I've always been unhappy with it, but as the eldest son of this confectionery shop, I thought I'd endure it until I became a capable person to protect the shop. However, I've reached my limit. Our family is leaving this house. I won't take over the shop. Thank you for everything, Elijah said and deeply bowed to his parents. My in-laws were speechless at the unexpected turn of events and eventually left the room silently. Scarlett, I'm truly sorry for everything. I'll protect you and our child. I decided to leave this house on my own. But will you stay by my side? Elijah's face returned to its usual gentle expression. Yes, thank you for protecting us. Let's overcome any difficulties together as a family of 3. From the next day, Elijah started looking for a new home, and a week later, our new life as a family of 3 began. Our new home was a small 2DK apartment, but it was very happy and a comforting space for me. Make sure you eat a lot and sleep well when you can. And to my surprise, our new home was only a 5-minute walk from my parents' house. Elijah is really a wonderful person. It's rare for someone to admit their weakness and ask for help as an adult. According to my mother, had explained and apologized for everything to my parents the night he decided to leave, asking for their help moving forward. You can always rely on us. We're so happy that you're close by. I cried at my mother's kindness. Elijah occasionally gets messages from his mother asking to show their grandchild, but he seems to only send pictures. After discussing as a couple, we decided that our family and his parents should keep a distance for a while, and we never told them our new address. Thanks to that, we were able to live peaceful days. Scarlett, we're running out of diapers. I'll go buy some. Elijah actively helped with housework and childcare, and we cherished our modest happiness, living humbly every day. I'm thinking of starting my own business. One day, Elijah came to me for advice. Even though the path to inherit his family's business had been closed off, Elijah, who had been fascinated by traditional Japanese sweets since he was a child, had not given up on being involved with them. His dream of sharing the beauty and delicate taste of Japanese sweets with people all over the world, which he had shared with me before we got married, was still alive in his heart. To make that dream come true, Elijah decided to start an online store for Japanese sweets. I was inspired by him. I wanted to help him achieve his dream too. With that thought in mind, I wondered if I could utilize the experience I had gained while briefly involved in making Japanese sweets at my in-laws' house, and I brainstormed in between housework and childcare. Look at the beautiful Japanese sweets Papa made. One day, showed our child the Japanese sweets he had made. Although our 0-year-old child couldn't eat them yet, their eyes sparkled, and they laughed excitedly at the sight of gentle colors unique to Japanese sweets. Seeing that, I had a flash of inspiration. What about Japanese sweets that even babies can eat? In my head, I pictured cute baby smiles and Japanese sweets overlapping. As soon as I told Elijah, he agreed, saying, "That's a great idea," and incorporated my suggestion. We focused on developing Japanese sweets that utilize the natural sweetness of ingredients like sweet potatoes instead of sugar, and the gentle colors of the ingredients themselves without using food coloring, all while making them suitable for babies. And in about 3 months, we created the product we had envisioned. At first, we placed our sweets in a friend's Japanese sweet shop and observed the customers' reactions. The feedback was better than we could have ever imagined, with comments saying they were perfect for first meals and birthday parties. This could work. With that thought, we started selling our sweets online, and they became a huge hit in no time. The media picked up our story, and our company steadily grew. Until the business took off, Elijah and I were fully occupied with childcare and work. However, by the time our daughter turned 2, The company had stabilized and was generating a steady income. As we gained some breathing room, I suddenly thought of Elijah's family, with whom we hadn't spoken for almost 2 years. In fact, after we left, I heard that Natalie developed preeclampsia during her pregnancy and had to be hospitalized. Perhaps it wasn't good for her to eat high-calorie food and expensive meat from her in-laws without exercising much. She had to endure a restricted pregnancy with strict bed rest and dietary restrictions. Well, everyone must have been relieved when a healthy baby boy was born. Unfortunately, the bad news continued as the family's Japanese sweets shop went out of business after Elijah left. What happened to your parents after they closed the shop? When I asked Elijah, he said they were living modestly on their pension. Despite not having many good memories, they were still the people who raised Elijah. 2 years had passed since we left his family's home, and our anger had somewhat subsided. So, after discussing with Elijah, we decided to give each of his parents $2,000 in cash as a birthday present. By the way, the amount of $2,000 came from the $2,000 his mother had mentioned as a childbirth gift. We didn't know if she remembered, but if she did, we hoped she would reflect on it. Later, we received a message from Elijah that the money we sent by registered mail had arrived. His parents were apparently very happy. Although we weren't ready to visit his family's home yet, we believed time would resolve this issue. As long as we live our lives with pride, things should move in a positive direction. Childcare is still a challenge, but with the support of my parents, I can focus on Japanese sweets with Elijah. Mom, is this my candy? Yes, Cherry. The cherry blossom petals are beautiful, aren't they? Tasty? Delicious. I'm so happy. My daughter touches her cheek with a delighted expression. This is a Japanese sweet we developed to be edible even for 1-year-olds, melting in their mouths without needing to be chewed. We made it into a cute Japanese sweet shaped like cherry blossom petals, inspired by our daughter's name, Cherry. I hope this sweet, like our child, brings smiles to everyone's faces. Mom, here, open wide. My daughter feeds me a piece of the sweet. The gentle sweetness melts in my mouth. I love that face, Mom. I hope this blissful moment with Japanese sweets reaches people all around the world.
My name is Nicole, and I am a 34-year-old hairdresser. I work as a chief stylist at the hair salon managed by my husband, Michael, who is 3 years older than me. We met through a mutual acquaintance, and I was drawn to his kind and friendly personality, which led us to get married 4 years ago. On the other hand, my husband's mother, Victoria, divorced when Michael was still in junior high school, and has since raised him single-handedly, which is a point of pride for her. While I believe this is an admirable quality, she still thinks that she has complete decision-making power over her son's every move. As a result, when we got married, she forced her opinions on everything, from the wedding ceremony, honeymoon, new house selection, to the interior design. To be honest, I had my own visions for things like the wedding ceremony, honeymoon, and of course, our new home. However, whenever I expressed my opinions, she would reject them outright. And when Michael tried to intervene, she would say, "Well, do you intend to defy me, who will become your mother-in-law? You know the saying about casting pearls before swine, right? You don't need such a wedding dress, seriously. I can imagine what the future holds if you're like this now. I wonder what kind of upbringing your parents gave you." Not only did she refuse to listen, but she also insulted my parents in the process. Honestly, I felt worried about the future, and my parents suggested, "Why not take a step back and think it over?" I'm truly sorry for my mother's interference. I think it was very rude of her. But I want to build a family with Nicole and be happy together. I will work hard for this, so please, will you watch over our marriage as it is? Said Michael, who apologized sincerely. Seeing this, both my parents and I thought, I am sure that this man will stand by me in the future, even if my mother-in-law and I have conflicts. So we decided to get married. In the end, the wedding ceremony and our new home were entirely based on my mother-in-law's wishes. My mother at home advised me, "Take a loss now to gain later. I know you must be dissatisfied, but if you give face to your mother-in-law here, in a way, it'll create a debt she owes you." With her advice, I agreed to go along with it. However, now I regret my decision from 4 years ago more deeply than the ocean and higher than the mountains. Michael, I'd like to talk about work for a moment. I'm busy tonight with the junior chamber meeting. Yesterday was a shopping district gathering, and today is a junior chamber meeting? Last week, you had drinking parties and dinners every day. When can we actually sit down and talk? Well, every gathering and party is a part of my business, right? You're not good enough to be a wife of an entrepreneur. Complaining about it. I'm not complaining, but now we have 3 stores, and it's only natural that I'd want to discuss various things about management, right? Well, I leave everything about the stores to you, Nicole. Your only redeeming quality, with no education or notable family background, is your skill as a hairdresser. So it's natural for you to work on increasing sales for the stores, right? So why are you trying to rely on me? Isn't that strange? Here we go again. 4 years after starting our hair salon business from scratch, we have successfully opened our 3rd store and are considering opening a 4th by the end of the fiscal year. It's a significant accomplishment, but as the business grows and Michael is praised as a young entrepreneur, he increasingly looks down on me. I can deal with him talking about my education and such, but he constantly belittles me, criticizing my looks, fashion sense, and even comparing me to rival stylists. Moreover, when I have to postpone a task requested by Michael, or don't reply to his line messages immediately, he starts to ignore me. When he begins to ignore me, he comes home late, leaves the dinner and breakfast I prepared untouched, and ostentatiously orders takeout or buys sandwiches and coffee from the convenience store. He spends more time at his mother's place, who lives on a different floor of the same apartment building, even taking baths there. At first, I was at a loss for how to improve his mood when he started his silent treatment. Even though I knew he wouldn't eat, I was afraid that not preparing meals would make him even angrier. So I continued to cook and prepare the bath, knowing it would be wasted. I often stayed up all night waiting for Michael, who didn't reply to my line messages and whose return time was uncertain. In the meantime, my mother-in-law would launch her attacks. "I knew you were a terrible wife, but I didn't think you'd be this bad." Why is Michael ignoring me? What's the reason? "You really don't have any idea. I can't believe it." Are you angry because I did something wrong? If you heard it from Michael, please tell me. "There's no point in me telling someone who doesn't know their own shortcomings, right?" She laughs and doesn't give me an answer. After a while in that state, just when I start to lose my patience, "I'm home. Oh, I'm hungry. What's for dinner today?" He comes back nonchalantly as if nothing happened back then. Oh, I'm so glad she talked to me. I would feel relieved. But eventually, I don't want to be ignored again. I unconsciously started living a life where I tried to please Michael and gauge his mood. I realized that when Rebecca, a new stylist who joined the company this spring, pointed it out to me one day. That day, I was being ignored by Michael as usual, not eating dinner or breakfast and not talking. Not wanting to waste it, I had packed the side dishes I had made for Michael into a lunchbox and brought it to the store. As I ate it for lunch, Rebecca spoke to me. "Nicole, is that lunchbox homemade by you?" Yeah, I just packed some leftovers from yesterday, though." I know it's a marital issue, And a newcomer like me probably shouldn't interfere, but have you realized that President Michael is trying to control you? What? Control? What do you mean? I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but isn't President Michael thoroughly ignoring you right now? Yeah, he is. I thought so. I saw him talking and smiling with everyone else, but ignoring you in the staff room. He thinks nobody's watching, but he brushes off your hand rudely. And then there's that lunchbox. Grilled mackerel and meat and potatoes. It's obvious that you just packed last night's dinner side dishes, right? It's worlds apart from your usual well-balanced, colourful lunchboxes. After Rebecca said that, actually my mother went through the same thing before she divorced my biological father. She told me her story. Rebecca's parents divorced when she was in her first year of high school, and her biological father often ignored her mother, just like Michael. It all started with such small, trivial things, but it was like a switch had been flipped, and then he ignored her completely. My mother cried a lot. I see. Eventually, she started to look for my father's approval in everything, and her smile became submissive. It's really painful to watch. Rebecca then told me that the reason Michael was ignoring me was because he was trying to control me through silence, making me worry, and ensuring he was always in a dominant position, smirking all the while. I mean, think about it. Normally, if your partner is worried or hurt, you'd be concerned, and it would be painful for you too. But people like the president actually enjoy seeing their partner worried and insecure. They're twisted. Since Rebecca said that so bluntly, I started to lose the will to panic like I used to. Even when Michael became moody and ignored me, or when my mother-in-law egged me on. Instead, once I started observing with that perspective, I began to notice only Michael's childishness, his terrible selfishness, and the maliciousness of my mother-in-law, who wouldn't even try to restrain him. However, it seemed they didn't like my attitude, and the oppressive silence directed at me by both Michael and my mother-in-law gradually became an everyday occurrence. He hardly came home unless he felt like it, and when he did, he would just lock himself in his room. He stopped showing his face at both the store and the company, and I essentially had to manage both by myself. Then one day, when such days had continued, that day was a day off for the store, and I was doing a thorough cleaning of our house for the first time in a while. I usually rely on the Roomba and Brava, but it's nice weather, so I guess I'll clean every corner for a change. Thinking that, I started wiping the windows while playing my favorite music on my smartphone, when Michael and my mother-in-law entered the house silently, unlocking the door with a click. As they plopped down on the living room sofa. Since my husband and mother-in-law are sitting here, I decided to make some tea quickly. Such an inconsiderate wife, haha. Really? But can we say goodbye to this kind of wife soon? Whew. It's going to be refreshing. That's what they said, as I reluctantly made tea and placed it on the sofa table, feeling puzzled. You see, Michael has a child now, so you should step aside and leave quickly. We'll give you about 2 weeks' grace, so leave this apartment during that time. Of course, we'll have you quit your job as well. No severance pay, though. Ha 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 ha. That's what they said. Michael has a child. Does that mean he's been cheating? And I have to leave here? I'm losing my job? No severance pay either? Although we were a couple in a Cold War, my mind was spinning with questions as I tried to process the sudden news, unable to catch up. The next wife is very different from you, haha. Her family is rich, and she graduated from a top women's college. And after that, she trained in the beauty capital, Paris. There's no way you can compete with her, so just give up already, haha. She's 3 months pregnant, and I want to make her feel secure as my wife quickly. That's right. I'm looking forward to it. There's no doubt a wonderful child will be born. They said whatever they wanted. So if she's 3 months pregnant, then that means the child is a result of an affair, right? Yeah, so what's your point? Emily and I just met in the wrong order. We were truly connected by the red thread of fate. So you want me to leave? Because now you want to marry your fated partner? That's what we've been saying. You're really slow to catch on. As I watched Michael and my mother-in-law's cheerful attitude, I could feel a headache coming on. At that point, I told them that I needed some time to think and asked them to leave. It's a fact that it takes time to truly understand things with a scattered mind such as yours. I get it, they said, then withdrew to my mother-in-law's room. After that, I couldn't bring myself to continue cleaning and just sat down on the floor. However, I noticed that the only incoming call screen on my smartphone was shining brightly in the dimly lit room. It was from Rebecca. Rebecca? Oh, Nicole, where are you now? At home? When I briefly answered yes, Rebecca said she was coming over right away and hung up the phone. About 30 minutes later, Rebecca appeared with both hands full of bulging eco bags. Sorry for the intrusion. I bought some random food and drinks for us. Saying that cheerfully, she borrowed the washroom to wash her hands, then quickly began to arrange the deli food she had bought on the table. She brought glasses from the kitchen and poured craft beer, her recent favorite, and said, "Let's eat before it gets cold." And she put a spoon in my hand. I tried eating as told, and the taste of fluffy, soft omelet rice filled my mouth. Delicious. Right? This place has amazing omelet rice, she said with a bright smile. I brought a variety of things, so please savor and enjoy them. I was reminded that I had only eaten coffee and bread for breakfast and hadn't had a proper meal. Although I had been completely emotionless until then, I was hungry after all. I realized for the first time. We ate in silence for a while, and when we started drinking beer, Rebecca said, "I received a group email from the boss saying that you're leaving the store at the end of this month." I told her that my mother-in-law and Michael had demanded a divorce and that I quit the store. Rebecca was silent for a moment at my answer, but soon asked, looking straight into my eyes, "What do you want to do, Nicole? Do you mean what I want to do, not what they say I have to do? It's your life, Nicole. You decide which way to steer. You should steer toward what you want." What I want, When Rebecca said that, my heart felt surprisingly clear. Let's get a divorce. There's not a single reason why I should stay with Michael and his family. I want a divorce. I want to start my life over right away. I answered clearly. I was given a 10-day grace period by Michael, but once I started taking action, everything went smoothly. I didn't have many personal belongings, so I quickly packed them up in separate boxes provided by the moving company. I asked Rebecca to handle my belongings at the store because I didn't want to see Michael until everything was settled. At the same time, I asked a lawyer, introduced by an acquaintance, to prepare a document demanding alimony and division of property from Michael. I signed a contract for a property I liked after several viewings. As soon as the move was completed, I had a lawyer send documents to my mother-in-law. Almost at the same time the letter arrived, I received a barrage of line messages and emails from my mother-in-law and Michael, so I decided to propose a meeting at the lawyer's office. While waiting at the lawyer's office for the scheduled time, a grinning mother-in-law, Michael, and young woman appeared. When the lawyer asked the woman, "Who might you be?" before she could answer, my mother-in-law said, "This is Emily, who will become Michael's wife after your divorce." As soon as I submit the divorce papers with you, I plan to immediately submit the marriage registration with Emily. They seemed very pleased. Since it didn't matter to me, I just asked if they would agree to our demands, and they said, "Yeah, think of it as a severance payment. We'll pay you whatever you want." I didn't think it was necessary, but Michael is a kind person. For you who will live a lonely life from now on, money is all you can rely on. They handed over the full amount I had specified in cash with a bank's envelope seal. I then filled in and stamped my section of the divorce papers and handed them over, ending the process. Finally, I said, I don't think we'll meet again, but just in case, I will never help you in any way, no matter what happens. Ahaha, so this is your last desperate remark. Okay, I understand you're upset, but you don't have to be so sarcastic. The woman named Emily and the three of them left the office laughing. I am now working as top stylist at a hair salon in the city center. Rebecca, who has been assisting me since last month, is the same Rebecca who helped me see the truth. After deciding to divorce at the lawyer's office, I immediately started looking for a new job. My past contest awards and being featured on a beauty website as a popular stylist helped me quickly land a new job. I am able to live without touching the consolation money or property division. I also started dating a man I met at a joint training session with the sister store of the salon where I currently work. I feel surprisingly free and relaxed every day. Nice. Where are you going on your next date? Hey, don't tease your seniors. Rebecca continued to work at Michael's salon for a while after I left. In fact, I was the one who convinced Rebecca to quit immediately. There were two reasons. The possibility that Rebecca, who had just started working, would be seen as lacking cooperation or patience if she quit, and concern that Rebecca might still be targeted by Michael and his mother if they knew she was still my friend. Rebecca reluctantly stayed at the salon, and according to her, the aftermath of Michael, his mother, and Emily was like a roller coaster drama. Emily appeared at the salon after my divorce, full of confidence, as the new top stylist and field manager, but her pride lasted only one day. The male staff member, who had been the sub-stylist under me, turned out to be Emily's class. Not knowing this, Emily made a grand entrance at the salon as a Paris-trained hairstylist, accompanied by Michael.
Wow, I thought you must be some amazing person since you said you were back from Paris, but it's just you, Emily.
Thomas, why are you here?
I should be asking you the same thing. I'm really surprised. You were always getting scolded by the teacher because you couldn't do any of the written test subjects at all. How did Emily, who kept repeating a year and eventually faded away, end up in Paris?
That's not true at all, is it? Don't make things up, right, Emily? Well,
you'd need a French hairdresser's license to work in Paris, right? When did you become fluent in French, like a native speaker? Of course, I studied at university, didn't I? University? Wow. The Emily who used to say she didn't understand English during the elective French conversation classes at beauty school.
And with that, Emily's disguise was completely stripped away. Afterward, a loud argument broke out between Emily, Michael, and Emily's mother-in-law, who rushed into the scene. The situation got out of hand, and the police were called. As a result, staff members began to leave one by one, and the salon lost its energy. Customers started to drift away, and the business quickly hit a dead end. They had no choice but to close two of their stores and try to restart at the original store. But it was already too late, and they had to close down completely last month. That must have been really tough. It really was. But because of that, I was treated as having left the company due to company circumstances. So the questions about my previous job during the interview here went smoothly. I'm happy to be working together again, but why did you choose this salon? Of course, it's to learn from Nicole's skills up close. I got it. I'll train you properly. Sometime after Rebecca changed jobs, a letter arrived from Michael and his mother through the lawyer, who was hired for the divorce. They probably had no other way to contact me, since I had cut off all communication and my parents had firmly refused contact as well. The letter went on and on about how they had been deceived by Emily, and that she wasn't pregnant and her background was all lies, She had taken everything from Thomas, all the valuable items, and disappeared shortly after. They had lost the salon and the apartment that they had used as collateral. Nicole is the only hope for me and my mother. I believe that you, being so kind, will extend a helping hand to us in our time of need. We want to hear from you as soon as possible. After skimming the letter, I called the lawyer who had passed it on to me. Please, just tell them I don't care. You don't have to pass on any more messages from them. And so, just as Rebecca had told me before, my life, with me, steering in the direction I wanted, is going great now, and I will never allow another man to control my destiny.
John and Linda are coming back for the birth, so you need to leave, Patricia, the mother-in-law, said in a chilling voice. The eldest son and his wife are scheduled to return in 3 days. Me? Confused, not understanding the meaning, she continued. You no longer needed to play the role of mom. You've served your purpose. From now on, John and his family will live here. Move out by tomorrow. I knew I was never truly accepted as a family since I got married. I have been treated as my husband's wife, but I never imagined being asked to leave after all these years. A barren failure like you. I did you a favor letting you experience raising a child. You should be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. James seems to be tired of you as well. James, too? I swallowed hard. If it's not just Patricia and John conspiring, then there's no need for me to tread carefully around my husband anymore. I thought it was foolish of them to kick me out, but it was Patricia who started this. What happens to this house from now on is not my concern. It's better to face the reality I could have ignored. I am Mary, 45 years old, living in a popular residential area with my husband and Patricia. Access to the city center is excellent. When we were house hunting, the newly appointed division chief, my husband, was particularly picky about this place. The rent is high, but the number of rooms and the value of stretching our budget a bit was worth it. My husband James is 8 years older, with a history of divorce, whom I met through a friend's introduction. His mature, enveloping kindness gave me a sense of security, and even after 2 years of dating, we decided to marry. Even after I revealed that I couldn't have children due to a past illness, his attitude towards me never changed. Likewise, even after hearing about the issues he faced, my feelings for him didn't change. He had a son, John, from his previous marriage. I'm really sorry to ask you, in your first marriage, to live with my son and me. I'll make sure to not trouble you otherwise. I'll definitely make you happy. He promised. To reduce stress, he suggested moving to a spacious apartment and preparing a room for me. John is turning 10 this year, and with mom around, there shouldn't be much to worry about. You don't need to force yourself to become a mom. After divorcing his first wife, my husband lived at his parents' home, where his in-laws helped with raising John. A few years later, the father-in-law died in an accident, and Patricia took over as John's mother. From the first meeting, John wouldn't look me in the eye. Perhaps it's his shy nature, or he's entering adolescence, but I didn't mind. As long as they acknowledged me as a cohabitant, that was enough for me. Patricia was a quiet and elegant person. When she came for the marriage greeting, she was polite, making me believe cohabitation would work out somehow. I will continue preparing meals as usual. James comes home late, so it's okay if meal times don't align. Mary, please take care of cleaning and laundry. Understood. I'm looking forward to working with you. After getting married, I switched from full-time employee at a drugstore to part-time to take on more household duties. Because of the division of chores, I started work late and didn't get home until around 8 p.m., but dinner was always ready. The one thing that made living together worth it was this. Patricia and John usually finished their meals before me, leaving me to eat alone. Though I sometimes felt lonely, even as a married woman, I had come to accept this as our family's way. But Patricia never liked me from the beginning, and never considered me family. John, there's a sports event at school before summer, right? When is it? We should all go and cheer together. One day, after we had been married for a while, I tried to break the ice with John, who was still distant. As John struggled to find his words, Patricia quickly interjected. We'll go to the school sports event with James, Mary. You don't have to worry about it. Misunderstanding Patricia's words, I thought she was being considerate. I can take off work. Let's all go together. That's okay. You're James's wife, and John's family has always been just me and James. I was mildly, no, quite, shocked by her words. When I talked about it with my husband at night, he said, Mom always cherished John. She probably thinks you're taking him away from her. I'll talk to her. Eventually, I started attending the school sports events as a mom, but there were hardly any times when John and I were alone, except for those events. Sometimes, John would look at me as if he wanted to say something, but Patricia always intervened. I later learned that Patricia had been bad-mouthing me to John. Mary says she'd be happier with James alone if you weren't around. She's terrible. James is being deceived by her. Telling such things to a teenage boy could understandably make him distrustful of me. It was an unpleasant revelation, but at the time, I never imagined Patricia could do such things. After graduating high school, John moved in with his girlfriend. A year after starting his job, they got married. Once John moved out, Patricia surprisingly stopped doing household chores. Her only enjoyment seemed to be making my life miserable. She stopped cooking, which she used to do, and would wait at the dinner table for me to come home. Without a moment's rest, I would start preparing dinner in the kitchen. You're really inefficient. It's going to take you all night at this rate. I wasn't good at cooking, partly because Patricia had always taken care of it. Every dish I cooked, Patricia would taste and complain. This is awful. I'm sorry, I'm trying my best. Mary, you have such a dull palate. It's a good thing you didn't have to cook for John. It's terrible. If she thinks so, she could cook herself. It seemed like she just wanted to complain. Not just about meals, she started complaining about everything, even cleaning and laundry, which she never used to mention. Why are there so many wrinkles in the laundry? Vacuum every corner. You're really hopeless at everything. Didn't your parents teach you anything? Patricia sighed while looking at me. I clenched my fists in frustration as she insulted my family. I don't know how you managed to win James over, but I can't see how much charm in you as a woman. She always ended her harassment with the same line. If you hadn't come, John wouldn't have left. I knew Patricia felt a void in her heart after John's departure, perhaps a case of the empty nest syndrome. If belittling me made her feel better, that's how I endured it. But Patricia's harassment intensified after a certain event. That event was the pregnancy announcement from Linda, John's wife and our eldest son. Patricia was ecstatic like I'd never seen before. John's baby! It's bound to be adorable. It's my first grandchild after all. Watching the two of them so happy, I was glad too, but Patricia's joy was extraordinary. The main reason for Patricia's happiness was probably because John had asked her, Grandma, can I come back for Linda's delivery? Probably because he said that. Linda's family lived an hour away by plane and had no one nearby to rely on, so they turned to Patricia for help. Of course, Patricia would never refuse John's request. As calls from John became more frequent, Patricia was overjoyed. The day after she heard from him, Patricia started preparing enthusiastically. From cleaning John's room to setting up the bed and making a list of baby items, she was ready to do anything for her great-grandchild. Naturally, I was roped into helping after coming back from work. Mary, I finished cleaning John's room, so you can wipe the floors and windows. And please wax them too. We're going to the department store to look at baby cribs this weekend. Cleaning and waxing at night after a tiring day at work was tough. Any result in cutting corners resulted in being told to do it over and over. Moreover, Patricia began demanding money from me, and soon the house was overflowing with baby items. Mary, prepare some money for tomorrow. I found more things I want to get for the baby. Again? Isn't it wasteful to prepare so much when Linda and her family might not even use it? Why don't we wait and choose together when they're here? I wanted to accommodate Patricia's requests, but there was a limit to how much money could be spent. How could you be so cold? It's James's grandchild. Right. You're not blood related to John, so it doesn't matter to you, does it? No, that's not it. Please don't say that. I just thought Linda might want to choose for her own child. Perhaps because I had a point, Patricia glared at me. I realized too late that I had gone too far. Without a word, Patricia went back to her room with a look of frustration. I regretted my words, but was also hurt by the way she spoke about my relationship with John. The next morning, Patricia didn't come out of her room, possibly still angry. My husband had a 3-day business trip starting that day and called out, "I'm leaving," through Patricia's door. Please keep Mom in a good mood. She hasn't been the same since John left. You were worried about her too, right? Yes, but if we spend all our money now, we won't have anything left when John and his family visit. My husband immediately looked irritated. Are you saying my earnings are too low? No, that's not what I'm saying. Displeased, my husband left without saying more. Money discussions always ended like this. Since I managed our finances, I couldn't help but think ahead. There was a reason for my concerns. We had been married for 13 years. My husband had provided a comfortable life without any want. Mary, you can use your earnings for yourself. He had said that, so I saved everything except for my allowance. Even though the account was in my name, I considered it our shared property. However, his company's performance had declined, and his salary had dropped to 1/3 of what it was when we first married over the past 5 years. There was uncertainty about the future of the company, but he seemed unwilling to consider changing jobs. He probably didn't want to give up his position as a department head, especially in front of Patricia. Currently, I pay the rent, and he covers the living expenses. We kept this a secret from Patricia to protect my husband's pride. That day, I left work early to apologize to Patricia. When I got home, Patricia was already sitting at the dining table, waiting for me. Patricia, I'm sorry. I went too far yesterday. Patricia didn't respond to my apology. Instead, she said something shocking. John and Linda will be coming back for the birth, so you should leave, Patricia said in a cold voice. Our eldest son and his wife are coming back in 3 days. Me? Confused and bewildered, I heard her continue. You're no longer needed as a mom. You've served your purpose. John and his family will live here now. Leave by tomorrow. I had known since our marriage that I was not accepted as part of the family. I had been treated as my husband's wife, but I should have doubted my place when I heard John and Linda were returning for the birth. You're a failure who can't have children. I let you experience motherhood. You should be grateful. I don't have to support you anymore. Seems like James is tired of you too. James too? Maybe he's getting along well with his new girlfriend by now. I swallowed hard. Could this really be happening? Lately, my relationship with my husband had indeed become distant. Was it a mistake to think not him? I realized that overnight business trips were something new in the past year. I understand. I'll eat out tonight. I grabbed my bag, left the house, and walked aimlessly, trying to calm my agitated mind. As I walked, I tried calling my husband's mobile phone. Despite what Patricia said, I still wanted to talk to him, but he didn't answer, and when I called his office, I was told, he's off until the day after tomorrow. Patricia's words started to seem more believable. Was he really traveling with another woman? Bad thoughts overwhelmed me, and I started crying. While walking, I saw a bar in the downtown area that we used to frequent when we first moved here. It's still here. I entered the bar, thinking back. Welcome! The bartender's expression clouded for a moment when our eyes met. Then he smiled slightly. Perhaps he remembered me. Master, it's been a while. About 8 years. I used to come here often with my husband. Yes, I remember. Really? I couldn't help but smile. At the same time, I felt a sense of relief. I'll have a beer and some chicken wings, please. Sure. The master was always a man of few words, unchanged from the past. I took out my mobile phone, and the screen lit up. It was a photo taken when John turned adult, all three of us together. The slim suit we picked out together suited him well. I had wanted to be closer as a family. Looking at the photo, the bar employee brought the beer and chicken wings. Drinking the cold beer seemed to wash away my mental fatigue. Can I arrange a move by tomorrow? The next day, I searched for moving services. I found one. I also looked up companies that buy unwanted items and saved 2 to my favorites. Changing the wallpaper on my phone screen somehow cleared my head. The beer and chicken wings tasted exceptionally good. I decided to go home and think things over. As I was leaving the bar, "Excuse me," someone called out from behind. I turned to see the bar employee running towards me. "Are you James's wife? I saw the screen on your mobile phone." "Yes, I am." It felt like a divine intervention. "James is having an affair with Elizabeth, one of our employees." Her youthful sense of justice was apparent, so that's why the master looked that way. My husband was still frequenting the bar, now involved with Elizabeth. They're always talking when it's quiet, and they leave together when the bar closes. They're always together, and it's really creepy. I couldn't help but give a bitter smile at her frank opinion. We exchanged contact information. "I'll contact you if anything comes up." Her words felt like a lifeline in my isolated situation. What Patricia had said was true. Once I had cleared my head, anger began to rise within me, more than sadness. If I'm going to do this, I'll do it thoroughly, and end it all. I booked the moving company I had saved earlier. If this wasn't just a scheme by Patricia and John, then I no longer needed to be considerate towards my husband. I thought it was foolish of them to drive me out, but Patricia had started it. Whatever happens to this house now is no longer my concern. When I got home, I spent the entire night packing my belongings. There was no more hesitation. The moving company I had booked for 2 p.m. arrived. "Patricia, as you said, I'm leaving today. The movers are coming, so I'm taking everything I bought. I wish you could just erase every trace of your existence here." I did just that, taking out all the furniture and appliances I had bought. Apart from the rent and living expenses, I had paid for everything else from my earnings. Watching the belongings being carried out, Patricia started to panic. "Wait, Mary, what are you doing? We can't live without these things." "I'm removing all traces of myself, as you wished. From tomorrow, you can start a completely new life." Suppressing a laugh, I ignored Patricia's protests and removed everything. She complained to the movers, but it was futile. All that was left in the house were the baby items and Patricia's closet from before the marriage. "Goodbye, Patricia. I've left no trace of myself, so live happily with James and John." Leaving Patricia stunned and seated, I left the keys and exited the apartment. I had my belongings stored temporarily and decided to stay at a single colleague's house for a while. Feeling accomplished, I slept very well that night. My husband contacted me a week later. Perhaps he had been scheming something with the other woman. While he was wasting time, I received a message from the bar. "I got a good photo and sent it to you." It showed my husband, older than I expected, talking intimately with a woman at the bar. Out of a sense of justice, the bar employee had followed them after closing. The photos also included them entering a hotel. I guess he continues his affair even now. Any remaining feelings for my husband dissipated. I asked for the woman's name and address to be researched. The next day, after gathering all evidence of the affair, my husband called. "Mary, where are you? John and his family are here. Won't you come back?" "No, I won't return. Patricia told me to leave, saying I was no longer needed. John and his family will live there now, right?" I knew it. John and his family were moving in because they had no money. I had heard that John had been job hopping after graduating from vocational school and was now working part-time. I want you to come back, Mary. I heard you're on leave from the drugstore. Do you have a place to stay? I'm fine. Don't worry. Patricia and John didn't like me, right? They must be happy without me. My husband faltered at my sarcasm. He had known all along that Patricia and John didn't accept me as family, but had ignored it. Well, I'll come back once. I have some things to discuss for my future. It was time for the final act for my life ahead. My husband responded with a relieved please to my statement. Later, I returned to the house for the first time in a while. Inside, there were some new pieces of furniture and appliances. John and Linda, seated on the sofa, greeted me without getting up. As I sat down, Patricia glared at me menacingly from across the room. The atmosphere was tense. I decided to do what I needed to do and leave quickly. That's when John spoke. Why did you come? After taking everything from the house? Living off James comfortably? I sighed. I took everything because I bought it. You wanted me to erase my presence, right? Just as you wished. It's ridiculous. You're just a part-timer at a drugstore. You couldn't possibly have that much money. My husband still hadn't told Patricia everything, it seemed. When I looked at him, he started speaking as if resigned. We've been combining our earnings for a while now. Then the things you took should belong to both of you. I decided to speak up for my husband, who was at a loss for words. James's company has been doing poorly, and his salary has drastically reduced. That's why I've been covering the shortfall for the past 5 years. Now I'm even paying the rent. Patricia stared at my husband, shocked. Patricia, I'm not just any part-timer. The hourly rate for a pharmacist is quite good. Now I earn more than James. My husband looked away awkwardly. Patricia's eyes flicked nervously between us. John will have to pay the rent from now on. You're living here, right? You owe it to Grandma for all she's done for you. John looked at me, surprised. How much is the rent? $2,800. Good luck. I'm done playing mom, so I don't owe you anything anymore. Get it together. You're about to be a dad. John shook his head slightly. That's impossible, muttering. Linda, hearing this, exclaimed, $2,800? You said living here would be free for rent and expenses. I quit my job. John's salary is only $1,400. What are we going to do? I almost laughed. Linda, it's okay. You can move somewhere cheaper. James still has some salary left. Linda seemed slightly relieved. But I'll be claiming alimony from James and his mistress, so life might still be tough. Linda burst into tears. My husband panicked. What are you saying? Patricia told me about the new woman. I'm done being a wife. That's a lie from Mom. You're the only one for me. My husband probably thought there was no evidence. It had only been 10 days since I left the house. Elizabeth would be hurt to hear that. I'll contact you separately about that. Hearing Elizabeth's name, my husband trembled, realizing I knew everything. He sighed, overwhelmed. This wasn't the right atmosphere to write a divorce application. I'm leaving now. Please write and send the divorce papers. My husband and John remained silent, saying nothing more. As I picked up my bag and stood up, Patricia also stood, slamming her hands on the table. This is all your fault! Our family is on the brink of collapse! She yelled. I couldn't help but feel angry. You told me to leave, Patricia. You said James had another woman, and you interfered with my relationship with John. Everything, all of it, was you. I became emotional. Regarding her relationship with John, she regrets that she shouldn't have been a little more involved in her relationship with Patricia. John's issue is none of my business. You're his wife. Support him in these hard times. Take responsibility as a family. What was she even talking about? If she hadn't hinted at James's affair or called John back, I would still be happily supporting my husband and this house. I've always believed in and supported James. I don't need that role anymore, nor will I return. I then looked directly into Patricia's eyes and said slowly, I was never accepted as a family member from the start, so I can't take responsibility as one. Patricia remained silent, trembling. I left the room, passing by the silent Patricia. My husband soon agreed to the divorce easily. It seemed he couldn't refute the evidence of his affair. I claimed a reasonable amount of alimony from my husband and Elizabeth. Soon after, the apartment was put up for moving. Eventually, John and Linda went back to their apartment, and Patricia didn't live with them. My husband is considering remarriage, but after the alimony and asking Elizabeth to live with Patricia, she was furious. He's now contemplating whether to place Patricia in a facility. After pouring so much love into her son and grandson, it's a bit sad to see them abandon her now. Maybe Patricia is no longer needed either. If Patricia had just stayed quiet and let John come back, maybe we would still be living together. I received an apology letter from John after the divorce. He wrote about wanting to be more affectionate as a child, but couldn't because Grandma disliked it. He was happy when I attended school events. I should have reached out more, perhaps building a different relationship. Although our relationship is severed, I hope for John's happiness in his future. I returned to full-time work as a pharmacist and rented an apartment near my workplace. I sold all the furniture and appliances I took to a secondhand dealer, not feeling good about keeping them. Life without harassment is quiet and comfortable. For a while, I want to live for my own happiness, not for someone else's.